Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So here's another deck profile for you guys today. This time it's on Azamina, Illusion Chimera. So yeah, I finally got my hands on the Azamina cards, which is pretty nice. Considering that Chimera can basically play a smaller version, like a smaller engine of the Azamina cards. Where like Snake Eyes, they play like 3 copies of Deception, which for this deck, which I'll get into momentarily as to why we don't need too many of those cards. But anyway, the cool thing I like about this deck too is that it's still just as consistent as it was before. And yeah, this deck can just do so many crazy things, and that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. So let's go and get started. All right, so starting off with the main deck, it's 44 cards. I'm playing 3 copies of Nightmare Apprentice. This is definitely one of the best starters. And yeah, basically you pitch any card from your hand, special summon this, and on normal or special, you can add any illusion monster from your deck to your hand. Next up, 3 copies of Mirror Sword Knight. We all know what this does. It tags out into any monster that lists Chimera Fusion in its text, which because you're always going to go for the big wing Berfament. Also has a negation effect where if you control a Chimera, the flying mythical beast, in response to one of your opponent's monster effects, only while they control it on field, by the way, you can banish this card and negate the effect. Sadly, it does not destroy, but that's fine. 3 copies of Cornfield Codal. You pitch this to add any monster that lists Chimera Fusion, in which case you're just going to get the Sword Knight anyway. And while you control a Chimera, the flying mythical beast, you can either banish this card from field or grave to negate a targeting effect your opponent activates. So that's actually really nice. So yeah, Cornfield Codal and Mirror Sword Knight, just excellent cards overall. Moving forward, 3 copies of Gazelle. On normal summon, you can either add 1 level 5 or Chimera Fusion monster, or I'm sorry, 1 level 5 Fiend monster and 1 Chimera Fusion. So one or the other. And of course, I did say on normal summon, I meant normal or special. And also, if it's used as fusion material, you can add any 1 illusion monster from your deck to your hand. So we got several targets for that. 2 copies of Big Wing Berfament. On normal or special summon, you can add both a level 4 beast monster and a Chimera Fusion. So this one can actually search out 2 cards, and that's why it's so cracked. But definitely not a card you want to see in your opening hand. You mostly just want to bring out off of Sword Knight's effect. And yeah, an amazing card overall. For the one of illusion monsters, I'm playing 1 copy of Emissary. Really strong against the Tenpai matchup, especially because it's a searchable hand trap, basically. And the fact that not only does it negate the effects of your opponent's monsters that are currently on the field, but it also keeps them from being used as Link, Fusion, Xyz, or Synchro material until the end of the next, or at the start of the next battle phase, which is kind of weird, but yeah. Overall, just a great like floodgate card in its own right. 1 Master Tau. It's basically Monster Reborn for any illusion monster. It does lock you into illusions from, well, summoning monsters from the grave except illusions, but I mean, considering that's what most of our deck generally is, it's not really an issue whatsoever. Alright, so new additions to the deck. I'm playing 3 copies of Diabellstar. So yeah, I am on the Diabellstar engine simply because like it synchronizes so well with the Azamina stuff, especially because like Deception is a Sinful Spoils card, and Diabellstar can search out any card that lists Sinful Spoils in its name. So yeah, Black Witch is just such a great card, and yeah, and not only that, but it's also a good extender too. So yeah, definitely recommend playing this. Now, if you don't want to play the whole Azamina and Diabellstar ordeal, you can basically just go back to the Fusion Armament build that I presented last time, and that's still just as good, if anything. But I like the whole Azamina stuff because, like, especially because we have access to an Omni Negate now, so that's just my preference on this one. Of course, I'm going to be playing the 1 Diabells, and funny enough, like, before, bringing out Diabells is a lot easier, even more now than it was before, because, like, not that it was difficult in the first place, but now that we are on Sinful Spoil cards, we can just simply hard summon Diabells, and yeah, Diabells is just a really powerful anti-spell fragrance card, and yeah, it gets pretty annoying fast. Alright, so that rounds up our main lineup monsters. Moving on to spells already. I'll save the hand trust for last. So obviously playing 3 copies of Chimera Fusion. Definitely one of the best cards in the deck. It's not once per turn to polymerization your monsters. The only thing that is once per turn is the ability to bring itself right back. 3 copies of Wanted. Gets us access to our Diabellstar. So we're basically playing 6 Diabellstar. And funny enough, since it is also a Sinful Spoil card, this is going to be pretty relevant because of that name. So, but yeah, again, I'll elaborate more on that later. You can also banish this card from your graveyard. Target one of your Sinful Spoil cards that are in your grave, put it to the bottom of your deck, and then draw 1 card. So yeah, some people often forget that this card does have a graveyard effect. Next up, 3 copies of Droplet. Just because like I like having that additional disruption. So yeah, and if I need to make sure one of my cards go through and just to force out a Omni Negate, I can just go Forbidden Droplet, negate whatever that negate something in response, and yeah, it does come up quite a lot. 2 Triple Tactics Talent. I'm not on Thrust for this deck simply because like I don't have enough normal spells to really target. So yeah, I think Triple Tactics Talent is just fine, just so I can draw 2 cards or just rip another card out of my opponent's hand and get some hand knowledge. So yeah, 1 Called By. And then for the 1-ofs, 1 Deceptions, as I mentioned, you don't really need too many of these. Like I'd probably bump this up to 2 later on. But for now, 1 is just fine because again, we're already on Diabellstar, and Diabellstar can in fact get this out of our deck. And it's recyclable too, so like we're always gonna have ways to, you know, cycle this out and just basically get the engine started again. 1 Hollowed Azamina. This is basically one of the fusion spells. So let me give you the card by card on how these Azaminos work. So let's go back to Deception. So you tribute 1 monster from your hand or field. You can add any 1 Azamina card from your deck to your hand, in which case the Hollowed Azamina is one of your main targets. And if a monster is sent to the graveyard, and while you control an Azamina monster, you get to burn your opponent for 1,500 life points, and you get to gain 1,500 life points. So yeah, this card's pretty crazy for time, now that I think about it. And then of course, during the end phase, if this card is sent to the graveyard while it was face up, you get to reset this card from your to your field. Most of the time, I'm probably just going to recycle it off of its effect because again, like setting it back face down can be kind of risky, especially if your opponent has back removal and we're only on the 1 copy. So I think using the wanted effect is probably a little bit better. So, but again, that's just me. But anyway, now going back to the Hollowed Azamina, this is one of our first fusion spells. So you reveal 1 Azamina fusion monster from your extra deck. And for every 4 levels it has, you round it down, by the way, because most of them are level 6s. You send off 1 Sinful Spoils card, in which case it's always going to be just the 1. And then you special summon that monster from your extra deck, and it does count as a fusion summon. And this card's not once per turn, by the way. This card's actually pretty nuts. You can target 1 Azamina monster you control or in your graveyard, shuffle it back into your deck, and if you do, add this card back to your hand. That's the only part that is once per turn is it's shuffling, it's adding back ability, similar to Chimera Fusion, but to basically polymerization. Well, not even polymerization, but to special summon 1 of your Azaminas is not once per turn. So yeah, this is pretty nuts. Next up, 1 copy of Azamina Debtors. So same thing like the Hollowed Azamina, you reveal 1 Azamina card or Azamina fusion monster, and same thing for every 4 levels, you round it down. It has, and then you just sack off 1 of your Sinful Spoils cards from your hand or your field to the graveyard. And it's also treated as a fusion summon. During your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target 1 Azamina monster in your graveyard, special summon it. So it's a monster reborn. So again, similar effect, but this one's in the form of a quick play. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you guys like a thorough explanation of how these Azamina spells work. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the spell lineup. Now moving on to the hand traps. For the hand traps, playing 3 copies of Ash, you know, obviously still one of the best hand traps. As a budget alternative right now for the Mulcharmy, for Wallace specifically, I'm playing 3 copies of Phantasme. Phantasme, you know, you're bound to get at least 2, maybe even 3 cards off of this. You draw, for every link monster your opponent controls, you draw that same number plus 1, and then you just basically shuffle back the same number of cards of link monsters your opponent controls. So great way just to fix your hand. But again, I'm just dabbling with it simply because like we are in a format where there's a lot of like Fiendsmiths or any just deck that uses some form of a link climbing, and yeah, I think Phantasme is definitely a solid alternative to that. But yeah, that's just what I think. And I also like that it does have targeting protection, so it's not too bad. Next up, 3 copies of Imperm. I mean, no explanation needed there, right? All right, so now for the extra deck. I got 2 copies of Chimera, the King of Phantom Beast still, because like I like hand ripping, and yeah, this card's pretty nuts. 1 Baphomet, you know, Foolish Burial for any Fiend, Beast, or Illusion. Chimera, the Illusion Beast, basically helps you enable the OTK, because like this card can permanently power down on a monster's attack points to 0 and permanently negate their effects. And it gets multiple attacks for every Illusion monster that was used for its fusion summon. 1 Guardian Chimera. 1 Magnum just to recycle my fusion spells. And then for the Azamina stuff, playing 1 Soul Ereshkiton. when it's fusion summon, you can target one card on the field, send it to the graveyard. And then during the standby phase, you can target one of your Azamina or Sinful Spoil cards in your graveyard, add it back to your hand. So it does have a good way just to recycle your stuff, you know? One Azamina Ilia Sylvia. This is the Omni Negate that I was mentioning, so yeah, pretty crazy card. One Mu Rikaligo. Pretty sure I pronounced that wrong. Powers down your opponent's monsters by 500 attack and defense points for each Azamina monster you control. And also, if this card is fusion summoned, you can add one Azamina or Sinful Spoils card from your deck to your hand. So basically, a great way to add back your deceptions, so that way you can basically just cycle it off again. And yeah, it creates this weird loop. I know some people don't really play this. I'm just testing it out, but I'm playing the one Moa Regina. It's got a really good effect, mind you. The only thing is, like, you have to cycle off 2 Sinful Spoil cards just to summon this thing, because it is a level 8. But anyway, you can target one illusion monster in graveyard except itself, special summon it. And then when an Azamina or Sinful Spoils card or effect is activated, you can quick effect target up to 2 cards on the field, destroy them. And keep in mind, this isn't particularly hard because a lot of the Sinful Spoil cards, like Wanted, for example, is a quick play. And we do have Azamina Depters, which is also a quick play. So yeah, not out of the ordinary that we can in fact pull this off. So, but do I want to keep playing it? I'm still debating on it, but it's actually, like I said, the fact that it also pops 2 cards, I mean, that's pretty strong. But anyway, finally moving on. Playing one Chaos Angel. I should have considered playing this last time. It's pretty easy to make in a deck like this because, you know, we do have level 6 and level 4s, and this thing is a level 10. So yeah, Chaos Angel, I should have considered playing that in my last build, but yeah, still a crazy card. For my links, still sticking to SP Little Knight and IP Masquerena. The only thing that really changed is that I decided to throw in Nightmare Unicorn. And finally, 1 copy of Access Code Talker, just to, you know, do some board breaking and just to, like, aim for the OTK. Alright. My side deck's a little weird, but it's going to see some changes depending on, like, how quickly I can get certain cards. But starting off with 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, 2 Nib. I actually do have 1 copy of Mulcharmy Fualo, so no joke, I actually pulled 2 QCR Lacrimas on 2 different boxes, back to back. I was able to sell one, and then I traded the other one towards a Fualos, and of course I had to pay a minor difference, but I mean, not too bad. But other than that, yeah, I'm glad I finally at least got 1 copy, something I can use as a target for Crossout Designator. And yeah, Fualos, you know, I would main deck it, but I mean, at 1 copy, it's just going to be sacky. So, but if I can get at least 1 more copy of it, then for sure it's going to make its way to the main deck. But anyway, moving on. 1 End of Anubis, just to keep my opponent from tampering with their graveyard. 1 King Tiger Wangu to deal with Diabell. 3 copies of Crossout Designator, because, you know, as I just mentioned, since I have 1 Fualos, might as well just use it for a target for that. 2 Lightning Storm. I might switch these for Raigekis, because, you know, Tempai are on Raigeki. 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, and 1 D-Barrier as just an additional target for the Crossout. So, anyway, yeah, that's all I got. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys next time.